Well, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation to Poland and to Photomonth. As Rafał said, it's my first time in Poland, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I wanted to talk about, I do a lot of writing online. I spend maybe too much time looking at pictures online, but then maybe everybody does. So I wanted to talk about that. What does that actually mean, photography online, and why is that important? And I hope that there will be enough ideas for you to either have a question or to think about what you are doing online. I don't know how many of you are photographers in the professional sense, how many of you just use the internet, but I think photography online is really critically important for everybody, and I'm hoping to make this a little bit more clear, because it's not just about cat pictures or funny pictures or sports or whatever there is. Photography really plays maybe the most important role for communication on the internet, because it's much easier to look at a picture than to read a long text. It's gonna be roughly half an hour of me speaking, and then before you all fall asleep, Rafał will take over and ask me some questions, and then by that time I hope you'll wake up and have some questions too. So I wanted to start out with something that's a little bit silly, but everybody talks about it, especially professional photographers, and it's just the number of pictures online. And it sounds all crazy, but in my previous life I was an astronomer, and I'm really used to dealing with very large numbers, so this is not that bad. But just to give you an idea what this actually means, like when you look at the history of photography, in 1930 there were roughly 1 billion pictures taken per year. Now that 1 billion sounds like a lot of pictures, but when you look at the number of people that lived at the very same time, it roughly meant that every person alive took about half a picture every year, right? So 2 people took 1 picture. That gives you an idea in 1930 how many photographs were taken. And then as time went on, like in 1960, the number had changed. There were more people, and more people had cameras. On the average, every person took 1 photograph every year, which is a really easy number to remember. It's a little easier than 3 billion, right? So 10 years forward, 1970, the number had changed already. The number had changed by a factor of 3, 2.7, but it's roughly 3. So you can see the number of pictures taken were growing, and humanity itself was growing too, but the number of pictures taken was growing faster than humanity. And then the digital revolution happened, and everything got a lot faster. So in 2012, so this is the numbers are from 2012, every year, every person took 54 pictures, which is not a lot of pictures, but still, that's a lot more than 1, right? 54. But that means, of course, some people take hundreds of pictures and other people don't take any pictures. But that gives you an idea how many pictures are taken roughly in 2012. Like just an idea of how many pictures are there per person on this planet, per baby, per grandfather, per mother, whatever. In 2012, 300 million photographs were uploaded to Facebook every day. 300 million. And that's only 20% of the pictures that people take. So 20% of the pictures that people take end up at Facebook. Right? And then if you extrapolate that and add everything up, you get this big number with all the zeros. That's the total number of photographs taken in the whole history of photography, which is not that old. You remember photography was invented in 1839. So these are some pretty big numbers, but they're not that crazy when you think about the number of people. It's a lot of pictures, but it means we all take a lot of pictures, a lot of them are online, and we look at a lot of pictures. So what does that actually tell us? Because it's nice to talk about numbers, and numbers are impressive, and we're either good with numbers or we're bad with numbers, and then depending on how good we are with numbers, it's scary. But what does it actually really mean? What are we dealing with here? So first of all, this is really stupid, but photography is a very popular medium. You all have cell phones with cameras now. I guess, does anybody here not have a camera in their cell phone? Is there anybody? No, right? So, when I was born, you didn't even have a telephone that you could carry around. I'm maybe the oldest person in the room here, probably.
I remember these times.
Yeah, so, I remember the first time somebody actually had a cell phone. It was as big as that water carrier there, and he was really proud of it, and it only worked a distance from 1 kilometer from his house. So he could make a phone call where we were in the chess club, right? It has really changed a lot. Like, you didn't have a camera, well, if you had a camera, it was a separate thing, right? So, but it's really popular now. Everybody takes pictures. But what does that mean still? It's nice if everybody has pictures, but if that doesn't really mean anything other than we take pictures, then what's the point? So we're all photographers now, but the only people who really worry about that are the professional photographers, like, because if everybody's a photographer, what do we need people like Rafał for, right? I don't know. But, I actually want to make the point that people like Rafał or Michał have a very important contribution to make, because they engage with photographs in a different way than people who work with their cell phones and just take cat pictures or whatever. By the way, I take a lot of cat pictures. So this is really the point, because not everybody approaches photography the same way. It's one thing to take photographs with your cell phone, it's another thing to go out with a camera after a newspaper gives you a job and you have to photograph the Prime Minister or a sports event. So there's a difference. And not everybody uses photography the same way. So photographs mean very different things for us depending on who we are, depending what roles we play, and that's where it gets really important. I want to say this, and I always add this, I live in the United States, but still I want to just say this. I'm going to show you some disturbing images. If anybody is, we don't have any children here, that's good, but if anybody is queasy about photographs, about graphic images, then they might want to leave. Okay? Just so, I don't know.
We're in Poland.
I think it's, I get disturbed by photographs too, but I'm just going to say this. Okay. So let's look at this. Okay, so 3 years ago, at the Boston Marathon, which is like a very, very popular sporting event, 2 bombs exploded. And the Boston Marathon happens on a day called Patriots Day in the United States. It's an actual holiday, and it sounds like a communist holiday, but it's not, Patriots Day. So it's a big event. The whole city is out and about. There's a huge marathon. A lot of people were there. And then you can see there's a picture here. This is a still from a cell phone movie. You see the explosion of one of the bombs. This is actually the second bomb exploding. And I was working at my desk at that time, and I saw on Twitter there were messages flooding in, like bomb explosion, and then there were more and more messages, and then more and more photographs came out. So what I'm showing you here is a selection of photographs. Some of them were in newspapers, some of them were not in newspapers. You might have seen the picture in the middle on the right here. That's a very famous photograph that was in a newspaper, and it appeared in all kinds of variations in newspapers. The picture on the left there at the bottom was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and everybody got really angry. That's a selfie by one of the bombers. So you see, these are all very different pictures, and they all look very different, and they all show very different things. They were all made by very different people. One of the pictures was made by one of the terrorists. Then there were photographs. It was at the finish line of the marathon, so there were all these professional sports photographers with their big cameras waiting for the people to come in. So when the bombs went off, all these professional photographers were there to take pictures. And so you have to imagine this event, this really important event. You have all these professionals with these really expensive high-end cameras, and they immediately started making pictures. Right? So you had this event where a lot of different people were able to take pictures, and they did. And a lot of these pictures ended up on the internet, in magazines, in forums, everywhere, on Twitter. So everything got mixed up really quickly. In the old days, when you remember this, you would buy a newspaper, and then there would be a photograph of an event, and that would be the photograph that you would have. And then maybe in the evening you switch on your TV, and there would be like a little segment. But now online, a bomb explodes somewhere, and suddenly there are all these photographs coming. And they're not really controlled. The people who control them are the people who make them. But they're not controlled by anybody else. And it depends basically on your own engagement and who you follow. If you're on Twitter, you see certain pictures. If you're in the news, you see certain pictures. You browse, you see certain pictures. Some of these pictures, so here's like the one up there in the center, on the top, second from the right. There's actually an exhibition here at Photomonth. I forgot where it is, but it's Mike Mandel and his wife, and they actually lived in that neighborhood. So there's actually an exhibition at Photomonth about the context of that picture. But there's a picture. There was a shootout. And that is a picture of somebody who was literally living right next door, and he looked down and he saw people shooting at each other in the street. So he took pictures with a cell phone and put them on Twitter in real time. Right? So you have all these different pictures. Real-time pictures, pictures that were distributed later. Some of these pictures, so the picture of the woman sitting there was in a newspaper. The picture of, when you look carefully and you look up the top right, that's the same woman there, you see the picture with the blonde woman. The same guy who's lying on top of that woman is the guy in the wheelchair, right? But that picture on the top right was not shown in any newspapers because it is too graphic, you know, with the leg blown off and, you know, the bone sticking out. So that picture, you found them on the internet if you go to websites like Reddit, but you sort of had to look for them a little bit. So there were all these pictures that were sort of shown kind of samizdat style, right? You know, on some forum in Reddit. There's another story, I don't want to go into too many details, but the first terrorist was killed in this shootout, and then he was taken to the hospital and they tried to revive him, and then they didn't succeed, but one of the policemen took a picture, and that's the picture there at the bottom, second from the right, and then the police people sent each other those pictures on their cell phones, like, oh, the bastard is dead. I'm not making this up. So then the story got out, but the newspapers never printed that picture. They refused to print the picture. But you could still find it online if you Googled it, but only a few days later. If you look for that picture now, you're not going to find it any longer. So there's all these things going on about pictures online, and they disappear with time, and different people show them around. So there's all these pictures around an event. And what you see from these events depends both on like where you look, Twitter, news websites, Reddit, you know, you Google it, and it depends on who is showing it. Like, what do people want you to see? So when you think about pictures online, there's this strange mix of like, what do people want you to see, and of like, what do I want to see? So there's this navigation going on of, you know, how do I get this information? How do I understand the world? It's happening in this navigation between what you're looking for and what people are giving you. And so this is like the world of photography now that we live in. There's all these photographs, and the photographs we see depend on what we're looking for and also what people are giving us. And so we sort of have to navigate that ourselves now as, let's say, consumers or people looking at photographs. So it's really up to us to decide, what do I see? And then, okay, what do I learn from that? This is why this is important. So just to summarize this, so you have these different types of images: surveillance camera images, police photographer images, cell phone images shared on Twitter, photographs from like people with cell phones, photographs from professionals, the sports photographers, you know, still photographs from videos, social media selfies. These are all very different kinds of pictures, but they coexist in the space. They're all treated the same way. And you can see them depending on how you engage with them. So that means when you think about photography online, it's really kind of your duty or your task to figure out what it all means, because nobody is telling you this any longer. And that's, I think, what makes photography online a little bit problematic, because you have to sort of learn, how do I do that? What am I looking for? Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're all voters, I'm assuming, right? So, and we go and vote, so you have to make a decision. What do you vote for, or what do you buy, and what do you make that decision based on? You base it on information. And a lot of that information comes in the form of photographs, right? And we'll see some examples, because now, of course, everybody knows that photographs are important. So politicians create certain photographs so that they look good, right? Nobody wants to have a picture of them that looks silly or stupid or bad. Because suddenly everybody tries to show you something really good, and then you get all this stuff. You have to find out, okay, how do I work with that? What do I do? How do I learn about this election? Do I vote for Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton? Like, what do I base this on? And there are all these photographs, or, you know. This is why this really matters, you know. So these are the image sources, just to repeat this, you know, these different kinds of sources. And it's all available. It's all freely available, and you can find almost everything online if you look. So, to summarize this, so a single event has this flurry, this chaos of very different pictures, and they're shared and distributed in very different ways. And it's really up to everybody to figure out, where do I look, how do I look, how do I engage with this, and how can I say that this picture is more important than that picture, if that's the case. So this is what I call the media economy of photography, and it doesn't have anything to do with the actual economy, when it has a little bit to do with the economy of money, but it's more about like the value of pictures, you know, not the literal value, but, you know, what's important, what's not important. And we all now have to learn this more and more, how to engage with this. So there is a competition, if you think about it that way. That's a very American way to think about it, of course, I apologize, but, you know, there's a competition of images that's going on. All these pictures want to be seen, and every picture needs to tell us, oh, I'm more important than that picture. You know, and then of course these people want us to believe, you know, the conservatives want to believe us all. Our conservative pictures are more important than the communist pictures, and the communists are the other way around, you know what I'm saying? So this makes it complicated. Because at the end of the day, we all have to make decisions, and we want to make these decisions based on what we think and not on what they think for us. Because those times are over, right? So it's about attention. Every photograph is asking for our attention. And how do we deal with that? Because while we can look at thousands of pictures, and we probably do every day, we still have to decide, okay, this is more important than that, and I really want to learn more about this and less about that. Just to give you another example, this is an older example too. This is from a few years ago. In 2013, a plane crashed in San Francisco. I think 2 or 3 people died. Most people survived. I don't know whether you remember this. So this young woman got a photograph. Her dad texted her this photograph, and she put it on her Twitter feed. And then this is what I saw on my computer. So what you see here, the plane picture, you see like the smoke is in the center, but on the outside you have these fashion photographs. And nobody would put these pictures together ordinarily because they're very different things. But on the internet, they somehow end up together, and they make these strange juxtapositions. Suddenly you have this dialogue between this fashiony photograph of this stylish young woman and a plane crash. Like, what does that tell us? So on the internet, you often find pictures together or messages together simply because a computer decides they now exist together. Because in your Twitter feed they come together, or somewhere by chance they come together. So suddenly these images start to exist next to each other, right? And it's really important for us. We have to figure out, what do we remember, what is important, and what is true and what is false. That's really what I'm interested in this talk in. It's not about so much about photography, but about like, what are the repercussions? Why is this important? Why should we all think about photographs online, regardless of whether we're photographers or curators or writers? Just as ordinary folks, like, why does this matter? And I think it's actually critically important. And then, even on the same channel, if you don't want to make it complicated, let's say you look at a newspaper or you know, some website, even on those sites, you often have a competition of very different images on the same channel. I'm just giving you one example here. This is from the New York Times, an American newspaper, and they have this blog, it's called Lens. And they always have pictures of the day, right? Because online everybody loves pictures. So these are 4 different pictures that are from a Pictures of the Day series. Like, so you imagine you look at 20 pictures every day, 20 pictures of the day, but they're very different pictures. You can see somebody's taking a selfie with the Dalai Lama, and somebody else is getting makeup done at a fashion show, and then there's somebody who looks like a victim of some violence in Africa, and then some dead people lying somewhere. Like, these are all pictures of the day. And somehow, the fact that they're pictures of the day implies that they're all the same importance. But are they really? I don't know. That's kind of a decision that we have to make now. Like, what does that tell us, that all these pictures are equal, or they're being treated in an equal fashion on the same site? Does that mean they're equal? Does it mean that everything is equally important, or does it mean that everything is equally unimportant? Or how do I make my decision that I think this picture is more important than that picture? What do we base that on? How do we deal with this? This is a very important decision that everybody has to make every day. And I think I'm not here to tell you how to make that decision. I'm really only asking you to think about this. Like, what do I do with these pictures? Like, how do I engage with them? Are there ways for me to do it maybe differently, or in a smarter way, or are there people that I can talk to? How can I learn this? Because at the end of the day, there are no manuals. Everybody just gets the computer and the internet, and that's it, right? Nobody tells you how to use it, and you could find anything, right? You have to figure out how to do it. And the best way to do that, I want to argue, is, you know, you can start by looking at what some of these people do that all the time, like photographers like Rafał or Michal. You know, these people can actually, I think, and they should, help you learn how to look at images. You know, and you can start doing that if you go to, you know, just like here, you go to exhibitions, you start to look at books, and you start engaging with photographs, and you learn that way, and then you can bring that to the internet. When you realize, okay, so this is how this picture is being used, but I understand this a little better now, because in that exhibition, it was placed in this context, and there was some text, and it helped me really understand. That's why these exhibitions are actually important. That's why museums and galleries and photo books out of the art world are important. They're not there for rich people with, you know, expensive makeup, you know, to spend money on. They're really important because they can teach us about photography. And we all need to learn about photography because there are so many photographs that we look at all the time. And a lot of information that we get is in these photographs, and we have to understand that. So we can probably not agree on what we find important, but I think what, we can probably agree on the following. What we find important, whatever it is, has to compete with a lot of stuff that we don't find important. Like, I love cats, so I love cat pictures, right? That's a lot more important than fashion photographs for me, but for you it might be the other way around. But still, there's that competition, right? And it's politics and whatever it is, economy, all these things are competing with each other, and we have to make these decisions. So when it comes to photographs, we have to learn how do we make these decisions. There's a lot of stuff we just don't want to see, right? I mean, you know this, right? You go online and most of the stuff you don't want to see. If you're on Instagram, you just keep scrolling through. There's like hundreds of pictures you don't like, or maybe you like all of them. Doesn't matter, right? It's the same thing, right? If you like everything, you don't like anything really. It doesn't make any difference, right? But there's a lot of stuff that we don't even really know of that we might want to see. There's this idea of the filter bubble. The idea of the filter bubble is basically on Twitter or on Facebook, you become friends with all these people, but Facebook suggests all these things to you, but they're suggested based on what you already see. So you kind of live in this bubble, like something that you don't want to see, they don't show you. But maybe that is important for you. Maybe you need to see something, or I need to see something that's not important for me. But then how you see that, right? If there's a bomb going off somewhere and you only look at fashion pictures, but you might need to know about that bomb, or the other way around, right? Maybe I need to look more at fashion, I don't know. But how does that work, right? Because it's easy to live in this bubble and it's enjoyable and you only look at cat pictures and that's fine, but then how you're asked to vote and like what do you vote for? I mean, you know how to vote for Felix the cat, so he gets the prize, but who's going to be the next prime minister, right? What do you vote that thing on, right? You're going to say who looks most like a cat? That might not work, right? You know what I'm saying? So it actually is really important. You have to learn to engage with photographs because whatever it is, what shoes to buy, what computer to buy, I don't know, maybe even whom to date. You're looking for a girlfriend or boyfriend online. Well, now everything is based on pictures, right? Who are you going to ask out? Like, who looks most attractive? Swipe right, swipe left. You know how that works, right? Everything is about pictures now. So as I said, the people who deal with photography all the time, those are the first people that can help you with this because they should know, or they know a lot about photographs, so they should help everybody. Well, look, this is how this works. So I'm going to show you some more examples now because this was a lot of talking and we're here to look at pictures, right? But I'm going to throw in some more problems, what I see as problems. And then I hope to convince you that they are problems. So let's see. So you might remember this. This is from a few years ago. This is a cover of a newspaper, The Times. And this was the Maidan, I think 2014 in Kiev. But when you look at this, it looks a little crazy, right? And the reason why this looks crazy is when you look at this, so the top picture is the actual photograph that came out of the camera, or and then the bottom picture is the picture on the newspaper, and you see it's the same event, but the bottom looks a lot more, aggressive, almost like a computer movie or like a computer game, it looks more dramatic, right? There's a noted difference. It's the same picture, but somehow they decided the top picture wasn't dramatic enough. There's not enough fire, it doesn't look, not enough colors. So we just add a little color here and there, right? So people, start manipulating and changing photographs. And there's a lot of discussion about that in the world of photojournalism. How much of this manipulation can you do? What's allowed and what's too much? And you don't know this as people, maybe not so involved in this, but it actually does matter because, again, the top picture is the original and the bottom picture is the one that was printed. When you change pictures a little bit slightly, they become more dramatic. And they change, maybe not the meaning, but it becomes maybe more urgent, or, it becomes like something changes there. And it's very hard to say what it actually is, but, it's a little crazy, right? So even if it's the same picture, these slight changes that photographers can do, they actually have meaning. They can make something like the bottom picture looks a lot more dramatic than the top picture. I think we can probably agree on that, right? So what does that mean? So there's a lot of discussions in the world of photography about this. But I think as people looking at photographs, these kinds of discussions also need to be taken out of the world of photography into the world of people looking at photographs. Do we really want to see a picture like at the bottom, or is the top picture more something like, what do we want to see? What do we need to see? Here's another example. This is like I'm changing tax notes to these. So this is a very famous photograph by a Dutch photographer and art photographer, Rineke Dijkstra. When you Google it, these are 4 pictures. They're all from Google, right? This is the same photograph, obviously, but they all look very different, right? I guess we can agree that they all look different. Even in the projection, the colors are very different, right? And you also see, if you look really carefully, there's a stick next to the girl, and it's missing in the picture on the right. That stick is missing there, right? So there's something that's a little fishy there. So which one of these pictures is the actual picture if you go to a museum? I don't know, right? I don't know which one is the real picture. But on the internet, if you Google a picture, the picture might look different simply because it's on the internet. And I could tell you why that is, but it's really boring. But, you know, things change a little bit, you know. Even in this case, everything is a little bluish, but some of it looks a little bit more somber, some of it looks brighter, some of the contrast changes. And as I showed you, this makes a difference, you know. And this is really just, this is an example of, this is just the technology of the internet. It's not because people do it on purpose, it's just because people are a little bit sloppy and computers change colors and, you know, all this kind of stuff. The browser looks a little different. This is not something that, you know, this is just the machines everything is running on. So like the machinery itself, the internet, all these computers, they already have these little problems built in, and they're just really small problems, but the more the pictures circulate, the problems get a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger, and suddenly everything looks a little funky. This is another, again, unrelated example. So this artist on the left had herself photographed. My voice is cracking up a little. And then she sent this picture out to professional retouchers, and she said, "Make me beautiful." And then somebody in the United States made this picture on the right. You see it's photoshopped, right? So there's nothing surprising about that. And she sent it to all people all over the world. But in Argentina, this is what came out of that. I was going to show you 2 examples, right? So it's the same woman, right? You know, you see that? I mean, it's a pretty big difference, right? This is pretty crazy, right? You know, so, and you know this because this is the kind of game that goes on. I mean, I swear, when you leave this building, you just walk in the street, this is what you see on all the billboards. Of course, you don't really see it because you only get to see the after picture, right? And I don't know what the Polish version would look like, but it probably wouldn't look like anything on the left, right? So there's all this manipulation going on in advertising and, you know, magazines. Here's an example. This is the same woman on 3 different American magazine covers. So you see a different amount of photography, Photoshop, different poses, and the woman looks really quite different on these 3 different covers, right? So what do you actually see on the covers of magazines? What can you believe? You know, what is the stuff that we see in the media? You know, what is real? How much manipulation goes into this? And I have to say, this topic is actually more important for the women in the audience than for the men, because there are really different rules. I mean, the reality is that women are supposed to look beautiful all the time and put makeup on, and they're retouched usually in magazines a lot more than men, which is really not fair, right? And there are all kinds of repercussions. We're going to have a whole talk about that, right? So there's these repercussions about photography, and suddenly it goes into our culture, into our society, and like equality, or maybe a lack of equality between men and women. Why do women have to deal with different beauty standards than men? Is that fair? Is that right? I don't know. I mean, you know, that's a discussion we also need to have, right? Because we're all equal, at least in theory, but when it comes to this stuff, we're not. Here's another example, just to show you the retouching. You know, if you look really carefully, you find out, if you look on the left-hand side, the woman is missing various body parts there between her legs, right? Because somebody didn't pay any attention, right? This is the stuff that happens all the time, right? And if you look, there's all this thing going on. People are being manipulated and, you know, retouched so they look attractive and what have you. And there are these images created of what people might look like, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh wait, I don't really look like that. What do I have to do? I have to go to the gym now, drink less beer, or do that or this? You know, this kind of stuff really matters. So this, I love this. This is an ad from H&M. Do we have H&M here? Ah, of course, right? So this is, I think, from Frankfurt. So somebody cut out this Photoshop. This is like, I don't know, how many of you know Photoshop? It's like this image processing software. So there's a menu. Somebody cut that, made a big version of that, cut that out and pasted it on this advertising. So now the picture on the advertising looks like what somebody would see on their computer when they manipulate the photograph so it looks attractive. So this is like a way, in the public space to counter this idea by just putting this is like an art installation if you want, even though it's also, you can say it's a guerrilla art installation, to say this image is really artificial and we are being made to believe something in a very specific way, because this image obviously is also very sexist, even though we're so used to this kind of advertising, right? We take it for granted. But this is the kind of sexism that is perpetuated by photography in advertising, right? This image of women have to look a certain way, and this is just to sell us, or in this case women, cheap bikinis, right? Here's a different example. This is an artist who went on, I think it was Facebook, maybe, or I don't know, one of these social networks. And what she did is she collected photographs based on, these are all selfies, as you can tell, and she collected photographs based on what people were doing in their selfies. So I think there are three different things going on here. On the right-hand side, you have people showing like whatever gang signs or whatever that is. In the middle, you have photographs of pairs where one woman is sticking her tongue out. And then on the left-hand side, I think it's women making a duck face, the thing you do with your mouth. You could do this like for guys or anything. But what you see is, when you think about it, like when you walk around, and one thing you can do when you walk around in a big city, you see people taking pictures of themselves all the time. And it's really interesting to see when you observe them do that, the moment the phone comes out, everybody starts to make this face. Like, I can swear to God, I put a phone in Rafał's face now, he's going to make like this photo face. Like, we all have these faces that we make so that the picture looks a certain way, not just you, everybody, right? But so that when there's a picture, we look a certain way, right? So we know that the camera is an instrument to show us in a certain way, so we want to control this too. And so we already know that, working with photographs is important, because if, I can swear to God, like every time I take a picture of somebody and I show it to them, like, no, I look fat or I look ugly, don't show this, right? You get this all the time, right? You know this probably from your own life, right? So the camera is becoming this tool for us now, and even when we are not handling the tool, we try to engage with it in a certain way, and it's the same mechanism that is at play here. Because, we want to look a certain way so that we project a message about ourselves, whatever the message is. Like, we're having fun, we're cool, we're attractive, if we go to somebody's Facebook profile, you almost never see a picture, I'm sad, or I look hungover, or, any of this stuff, or, I'm ugly, or whatever. This, Facebook profile really is about like showing this very specific message. I'm successful maybe, or I'm pretty, I'm a tough guy, I'm this, I'm that. I'm not on Facebook, so you can't look at mine. I don't know what I would say. But anyway, right? So this is the same thing. It's not just the media. It's also like even your friends or the people everybody is showing you with pictures a very certain thing. It's like in the olden days, or even today, when you go to somebody's house and you see family photographs, they're always really pleasant, right? There's a frame somewhere on the wall maybe, and even though you know that the parents have fights all the time, and the pictures they never do, right? They're always happy. Everybody's always happy. How is that possible, right? Of course they're not a happy family because they fight all the time, but pictures lie, or they're made to send us a certain message. Like, we're so used to that. And I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying we need to be aware of what's going on here and what that means. I'm not saying we should all say, all pictures lie, we don't trust them, but we have to sort of find out, okay, what do we do, what do we believe in pictures, and how do we engage with this? So here, well, this is, lovely, right? So there's a city, but of course, the weather isn't quite as nice, so you can just take a picture in front of like a fake city. It's the same city as in the background, except this one doesn't have any fog, right? We're so used to this stuff, it's almost like, well, that's just the world it is right now. But, this is kind of like an artificial world we're creating, and it's all around pictures. And so the pictures we're making are kind of artificial now, including my own, of course. Well, mine not, right? Because mine are the only true pictures. That was a joke. So here's politicians, right? So the politicians, Barack Obama, you can say whatever you want about him, and he's really, really smart at working with photographs. So you see there's a woman taking the picture, she's taking well, actually these women are taking selfies here. So you see the woman with the iPad is taking a selfie, and you can see actually the screen of the selfie there. Well, I'll show you this, right? Get up. So these two women are taking the picture here, and you can see this, and he clearly knows what he's doing, because you can see him here, right? So he's making sure that these people get just the right picture here of him, right? He's posing with them while they are posing with him, right? So he's making sure that his picture looks cool.
because he wants to get elected, right? You can tell, by the way, if you're wondering why he's wearing his shirt this way and he doesn't wear a jacket, when American politicians are campaigning and they try to win voters over, they don't wear a jacket and they roll their sleeves up, just like I do. And it shows them that, it shows the voters that, you're hardworking because you took your jacket off and you roll up the sleeves. There's an expression in English, you roll up the sleeves to get some work done. It sounds like a joke, but if you look at, there's an American campaign going on now, if you look at photographs, they all look like that guy. Except for Hillary Clinton, she doesn't have to roll her shirt up. She doesn't wear like a male shirt, right? But all these campaign photographs, right, they have that. Donald Trump, the crazy hat that he's wearing the hat mostly outdoors so that the wind doesn't change his hair. That was their solution for, because he has this hair problem, right? And he needs to make sure that the wind doesn't make a crazy picture of him, so he's putting a hat on. Everything is very much calculated, right? So these guys know, and girls, there are not that many women there, but now it's Hillary Clinton, they know very well, I have to get the right picture so that people vote for me. And you have the same situation here in Poland or when I go to Germany, right? So this kind of stuff matters. And everybody wants you to believe something, right? And if you're cool, then of course, it's much easier to vote for you if you're cool, right? And this guy, Obama, has really perfected it. This is also great. This is an actual photograph from a Dutch building. And it says, you can see this, in case of fire, please leave the building before posting it on social media. So this sounds like a joke, but they have to actually make signs in buildings now, because there would probably be people who would rather take a picture and show it on fire and then post it on Instagram, and then they would die maybe. So you have to tell them, please get out of the building first, and then you post the picture, right? That's the world we live in now, and it sounds crazy, but it's really true. If you Google this, you can find pictures on Google. If you just Google deadly selfies, people die now because they try to take a selfie. They take a selfie with like a deadly animal, the animal kills them, or they take a selfie and get hit by a bus, and that kind of stuff, right? I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's the reality of photography now too. You can actually get killed just because you want to take a funny picture. Here's another example. This is a little research I did a few years ago. There was a war in Libya, the civil war. So I found the picture on I don't know which one it was. I found one of these pictures in the morning online, and I looked at a lot of pictures. And then in the evening I found a picture and I thought, oh wait, I'd seen that before. But then I looked again in the morning, like I compared it with the picture in the morning, and I found, oh wait, that's not the same picture, but it's the same thing. So I was like, wait, two people taking the same picture at the same time? That's crazy. So I spent a whole day researching this with Google, and you can actually do that, but you can't do that any longer right now, because now all these pictures sort of disappeared. And I found, so this is the scene on the top right here. So you see there's only one rocket launcher, and there's really only one rocket going there, right? Which is bad enough, but that's it, right? So it's not like crazy. But there's like 4 photographers there photographing that same rocket, right? And you can see in the other 3 pictures, they're literally standing right next to each other, those 3 photographers. Which is totally crazy, right? You imagine this, there's 4 photographers, 3 are standing right next to each other, they're all taking the same picture, but those pictures then end up on different websites, on different times of the day. So you see the same picture 2 or 3 times, in different sites, by different people. So how many rockets are there really, right? I was only able to find 1 rocket launcher, but on the news, all day long, all you would see is like the rocket launch, right? So, well, this looks really crazy there, right? But all I can tell you is there was 1 rocket launcher, and I don't know, launched like 2 or 3 rockets, right? But that was the news that day, right? And then the question, of course, is what is going on in Libya? Should NATO intervene or not? Right? NATO actually did intervene eventually, and it turned into a gigantic mess, right? But so, what's the reality of this, right? What are we looking at? And then, and then this is another picture I found online. So this looks like a fake, right? It's like, no. I was like, no, there's no way. This is ridiculous, right? This is not a fake. This is an actual photograph. Now, in the past, I used to tell people you can Google it, but I actually did that for you. So I can show you. I can actually show you this. Ta-da. So this is Frank and Louis, and if you just wait a little, you'll see this is the kitty. See that? And the cat has 2 faces. And it looks like a bad Photoshop job, right? But it's not. It's a cat with 2 faces. And the cat turned 15 and then died from cancer, but he was a really happy cat and all, right?
How did his owner find such an unusual...
So, close this again here. So when you see this, let's see, Control L. So this picture looks like a fake, but it's not, right? So we're so used to seeing fake pictures of pictures where like the Photoshop was off. So suddenly you have these pictures that look, because we all know what a fake picture looks like, something where the Photoshop didn't work, but now there's suddenly pictures online that look like fake pictures, but they're real. That's crazy, right? So you don't even know any longer, is this fake or real? Right? You have to do research. So that's the next crazy thing. It's like, we're now in a day and age where everything is like faked, but everything is kind of real, and then some of the stuff that looks fake is real, and some of the stuff that looks real is fake. And nobody's telling you what is real and what is fake. You have to do your research too, you know? So that's kind of the job that we all have now. And a lot of what I just showed you, this plays out on the internet. And it is really, really fast because there's pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures, right? And on Facebook, Instagram, all these pictures are going by. And you see them and you have to make decisions or like them or maybe not like them and find out what's going on. So this is a little crazy. But that's the world we live in now. And I want to argue that, you know, this is critically important for all of us to understand more about photographs, you know, because they matter in all these different ways. They matter for us. Who do we vote for? What's important? What just happened in this place? What's my opinion about that? What do I buy? Am I supposed to look like this person? What does it mean that beauty is this standard? A lot of these kind of aspects are being communicated with photographs. So we have to understand photography a lot more, and you have to sort of learn to engage with photographs a lot more, because it's not just pictures online. It has a lot to do with what we're going to deal with in our lives, whom we're going to vote for, whom we're going to be dating or marrying or divorcing, I don't know, all this kind of stuff, right? So what I want to argue is, or what I'm actually arguing before Rafał can ask me questions, so this is like what I usually tell photographers, you know, the popularity of a medium is promising, so photographers don't have to be worried about like there are too many pictures. But photographers, professionals, they have to help us, help everybody understand how do we deal with pictures. How do we deal with the pictures we're taking even? How do we deal with the pictures that we're seeing, so that we can learn how to be smarter with photographs and we don't have to spend so much time doing all this research. So that's that part.
All right, thank you, Jörg. I think we made a major mistake, because I should have interrupted you a few times, because there are so many things that should be discussed, and maybe if I interrupted you, you would be more lively, or because I have a full list of, I have 19 questions.
Oh, that's okay, I'll be lively enough.
No, I mean, but I feel a bit lost, because
okay.
there's so many issues that are critically important when it comes to online photography. But as far as you ended with this statement that professional photographers should have some sort of a mission of to educate people. It's a beautiful romantic idea, which I think is, which I wish it was true, but I would argue actually with this thing. I mean, I know this is necessary, but is it actually happening? Because where is mainstream today? Is it what we have seen in this composite from the Boston Marathon? There were only 2 images made by professional photographers, while all other platforms used these vernacular images made by passing buyers, by participants of this marathon, or by the, you know, everyone being at the location. So where is this? Like professional photographers in this very traditional and understanding of being a photographer, or like reporter, or reporting, informing, etc., etc. Do we still have this function? Because I think it devaluated a little bit.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, and it is a little unfair. Well, it's not. Yeah, okay, let me say this. It's a little unfair to say, okay, photographers, it's your job to do that. But you know, that's one side of the coin. But the other side of the coin is that everybody has to also ask for it. So which means everybody has to start going to exhibitions, has to maybe tell people, well, we actually need to see more discussions about photography. We need to go, you know, it's not just photographers that have to go and walk around with big banners, hey, look at us, listen to us, we know something. It's in everybody, so the idea is in everybody's interest to say, I need to look at this more now, and whoever I talk to, I need to ask for it. Because, you know, engagement is really only possible, and it really only makes a lot of sense if it comes from both sides. And I know, you know, you are offering a lot of stuff, and you know, you know, you here in the audience, you're obviously interested because otherwise you wouldn't be here. So, I mean, in principle, I would have to tell everybody who's not here, like, not because of this talk, but like, you need to be more engaged. You have to ask for more talk about photography. You have to be able to say, like, to talk to your newspapers or TV stations or whatever, even like your friends, like, well, let's go to this exhibition or let's talk to these photographers. So it's not just, you know, your burden. It's like, so the burden is basically on everybody.
I mean, I don't think, I mean, I like this idea and I like this burden, and we all people who deal with education, visual education, I'm absolutely for it. But the question is, what's the reality? Where is this true true? Where is photography today? I mean, giving the example of this marathon or even the Arab Spring pictures, these news pictures, very news pictures. I don't say these longer term projects, which were also commenting the work, the events that were going on over there. This basic function of photography, like information, is coming not from professional photographers, but from everyone. So when you're speaking about this like professional sector, I have an impression that we are speaking of some sort of a niche that is,
right,
which is important, of course. I'm part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to think that it's still important, but you know, everybody, we are all photographers now, and we deal with photography. We produce a lot of photography. So.
Well, I think, yeah, I don't disagree at all. I mean, I have this discussion also. I teach photography in an art school. You know, in the art context, you know, if professional photographers live in this niche, like there's an even smaller niche, which is the art world, you know, where you go to a gallery and there's like a white wall and you have like some, you know, pictures in a really expensive frame, and people drink like a glass of wine and talk about, you know, whatever, some flowers or something. And my students always ask me, like, they always say, like, I don't really want that, but it seems like the only option for me is that I make an exhibition and I sell my photographs for like a lot of money to rich people, or I make a photo book and then I have 300 books, and those books are basically the only people who buy them are like my friends and other photographers. And I always tell them, you know what, that's true, but only if you accept it as true. Because there are so many different ways of how you could show other people your pictures, but you know, if you only think about what exists, then okay, that exists. You know, I mean, I don't want to give myself as an example, but I could. I mean, you know, I have this website now that is widely read, but when I started it, nobody knew of me, and I didn't make it to become famous or popular or any of that stuff. I don't really care about that, but you know, so I tell my students often about, like, there was a photographer in Philadelphia who was photographing in Philadelphia, and what she did is, once a year, she took her photographs and she put them up. There's like a highway overpass, like a bridge, and she put them up on the bridge, under the bridge, like in one of the most ugly spots of Philadelphia, and made an outdoor exhibition. And the exhibition was basically just, you know, she made little flyers, like put postcards around the neighborhood, and then the people from the neighborhood came by and they could buy a photograph for $5. You know, it's like 20 zloty, right? Not much money. And nobody, you know, nobody told her you can't do that. She made photo books, she had gallery shows, but she said, well, I want to make, you know, who says that if you're a photographer, you can only show your photographs in a newspaper or online? You know, you have to sort of, if you really want to reach people, I believe, and maybe that's a very American way to think about it, but who prevents you from making 2,000 newspapers and giving them away for free on the street, right? It's not that expensive, and you know, you can reach 2,000 people immediately, right? That's a lot of people, right? You know, so there's all these things, but I think Of course, a lot of the stuff doesn't exist, and you might not be able to reach 1 million people right away, but you know, it's all starts small. If you really want to reach more people, then you sort of have to make it happen, and that's, you know, it's true, I think, for art photographers, just the same way as, you know, editorial photographers. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be, you know, straightforward, but I think it's actually doable. You know, who prevents you from making a website where you talk about photography, and then, you know, if it becomes, with time, it becomes widely read because people know, oh, this is interesting, they talk about this. You know, you never know where this comes from or where this goes. But I think I don't have the recipe to say, well, this is what you do and then you'll be really famous or you reach a lot of people. I just don't. But I think if you have an idea, then just do it. Try to do it and try to reach a lot of people, and you might be successful or you might not be successful. But you know what, if you're not successful, then at least you did it. You know, you can say, I tried it. I think that's a lot more important.
So we do it for ourselves.
It's good for yourselves. I don't have the golden recipe, and you're exactly right, but I think, you know, it's doable, you know, whatever it is. You know, are you going to be able to compete with Kim Kardashian, who's like 72 million Instagram followers? Probably not. Is that your kind of competition? Probably not, right? So, you know, I think it's doable.
All right, so there is some hope for our little niche, or it's maybe not a niche.
Well, make the niche bigger, that's all it is.
Oh yes, the niche, nicher. All right, so another quite important thing was this, okay, this is of course widely discussed, and maybe it's a kind of a boring question and maybe over-discussed, is this manipulation with images, manipulation of online images, which is pretty interesting phenomenon in terms of the cat, which you showed, how this manipulation became a part of our daily understanding of images, because what we see online, we believe it's true, and this is this magic of photography. It's really strange saying that, you know. After all these manipulations and being aware of these manipulations, but we still believe photography, or do we? I mean, it's this is like this, you know, what's it's the fight, or not a fight, or coming back over and over to the question if we still believe photography, or you know, that how much online photography changed that. I mean, our believing photography in terms of distribution.
Well, we can ask. Let's see what the audience think. If you raise your hands, how many of you still believe in photography? Be honest.
In truth.
In truth. Anybody?
Of course. It's
no?
a tangential question.
Oh, what? Yeah. So we have at least one person. Who else believes in photography and truth? No, there's another person, right? So I mean, I think. So I mean, it's a complicated question, because I think every photograph has truth to it. I mean, unless it's like really, I mean, you know, that's a mistake, right? But every photograph is true in some way, and it's false in another way. You know, every photograph that you take, I mean, these are three different ways of looking at this woman. She's an athlete, I think she's a skier or something, like a ski champion, right? So every photograph shows you something about this woman, and they're not exclusive. They're all an aspect, and they're mixed with how the photographers and the makers of the magazine look at this woman. So the question, I don't think, is so much as like, is this photograph true or false? I think the most important question is like, how is this photograph being used? And given how it is used, what is that telling us? Which is I think a very different question, because you can argue forever about, and photographers actually do that, right? They argue about, is this too much manipulation or not, right? And you can argue forever about it, and you can't really measure it. You can measure the temperature, right? Because you have a thermometer and you measure it, but you can't really measure, is that too much manipulation or not, or is this too much or not, right? So then the question is really like, how is this being used? Should this picture be like in this way? Should that be used on the cover of a newspaper, given that it looks like so artificial? And that's a much different discussion, because then it's less about the photographs and like what you do on your computer, and it's more about like, wait, what do we actually need to see? Like, what is this telling us? I mean, you can ask this question also about these kinds of pictures. Like, are these the kinds of pictures we need to see about young women? Is this what our picture of young women should look like, right? This is a very important discussion we need to have. Not about, like, is this true or false, like, or is this overly manipulated or not, but, like, what is this telling us? Like, what is the larger truth this is trying to get at? Is this the truth of, like, what young women should look like? Should we accept that or not? That's a different truth than, like, is this photograph being manipulated or not? So I think there's these different aspects, and I think we need to start talking about the larger truth and, like, what do people want us to believe? And is that good for us or not? That's really the question. Like, is this, you know, I mean, what are we led to believe here? Like, what is this telling us? And that's a question we can talk about more, I think, better, especially with people who are not photographers. Then, you know, I mean, as photographers, we know how this is made, right? You know, we know with Photoshop and all this kind of stuff, but most people don't know this, and they don't really care that much, right? But is this, you know, is this acceptable or not? Is this like something we should allow? Is this something we should see going from this on the left to the right? That's a discussion we can have with everybody, I think.